and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Iran has reaffirmed that the United States should follow its obligations to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Tehran also warned against possible U.S. military involvement, dismissing Washington's claims that mines have been cleared from the critical waterway. Canada has announced counter-tariffs of up to 50% on American goods in retaliation for the latest round of tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Trump added to tension, saying his administration is considering changing the name of Lake Ontario to Lake America. South Korea's business sentiment this month rose to its highest level in nearly 4 years. This was led by steady confidence in manufacturing and stronger conditions in the service sector. As the conflict between the United States and Iran continues, Tehran has laid out conditions for opening the Strait of Hormuz, in addition to Washington fully restoring its obligations in a previous MOU. Our An Sung-jin starts us off with the details.
Iran has reaffirmed that it will not take any steps to reopen the Strait of Hormuz unless the United States first adheres to a previous MOU. Iran's deputy foreign minister told its state media IRIB on Tuesday local time that Washington must fully restore the obligations it violated before Iran opens the strategic waterway. He blamed the U.S. for the current closure and put forth 3 additional conditions before normal shipping can resume through the strait: an end to fighting on all fronts, an end to the blockade, and a resolution to the situation in Yemen. The deputy minister also warned against possible U.S. military involvement, dismissing any claims from the U.S. that mines had been cleared from the strait. These comments came after U.S. President Donald Trump stated on the same day through a social media post that the U.S. Navy had reported that all mines in the international waters of the Strait of Hormuz had been removed or detonated. Trump in the same post also noted that Iran has been notified that any vessel laying new mines would be immediately destroyed. Meanwhile, Russia's state-run news agency RIA Novosti reported that Washington and Tehran had reached a ceasefire agreement that included free navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. The report, citing Pakistani military and Iranian security sources, said that the agreement could be announced within days, but provided no details and did not independently verify the claims. As tensions continue between Washington and Tehran, the opening of one of the most strategically important shipping routes still remains severely disrupted by the geopolitical standoff. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And the Trump administration has announced new economic sanctions on Iran, describing the measures as an economic D-Day. For more on how these measures could actually affect Iran and the broader impact, we're joined today by Professor Hassan Gun, visiting professor at the Institute of Middle East Studies at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Professor Gun, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
So the United States has threatened to impose severe sanctions against any country or entity maintaining economic ties with Tehran. Will this actually succeed in isolating the country? Because some say the United States has held back its toughest measures for now. How much of an impact do these sanctions actually have on Iran's economy?
These sanctions, of course, can hurt Iran very seriously, but complete isolation is much harder than that. The important distinction here is between economic damage that they can do to the Iranian economy and the political capitulation. So Iran is already under very enormous pressure, like sanction pressure from the United States. The IMF already projected that Iran economy to contract this year about 5.4%, and the consumer price is rising so fast to almost 70%. And the consumer price and food price, they have already they are already under severe restrictions and severe economic crisis. But this so these new sanctions will increase this existing crisis rather than create one from scratch. So the latest measures, however, are so enormous that they have said that they have targeted 60 individuals and many companies and vessels and targeting many sectors like shipping and technology. Yet the administration of United States or Washington stopped short of sanctioning the Chinese major financial institutions that facilitate Iranian trade. So the sanctions can significantly weaken Iran, but whether they isolate it depends on China primarily, and on third countries. Third countries are if they are compromised with the United States in order to implement these sanctions.
Right. And Iran says it's fully prepared and that it has a 2-year plan to counter these widened sanctions. How might Iran retaliate?
Iran's 2-year plan appears primarily to be economic resilience strategy rather than a real plan. So Iran officials said that Iran has prepared for tighter sanctions for some time, including measures to manage economic disruption and like reconstruction of the economy. But militarily, however, Iran will follow the same symmetric rather than conventional way. So their major leverage, of course, as we know, is the Strait of Hormuz, and they might also threaten the Gulf energy exports. They have repeatedly threatened that they will stop it altogether. And also, the second option they have is the missile and drones and their allied armed groups on the area, especially the Houthis. So, beside the Hormuz, they could also disrupt the shipping routes through the Bab el-Mandab and the Red Sea. So, for Iran, there's nothing new about their deterrence way. It will be the same. Most importantly, the Strait of Hormuz, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. So for Iran, they will keep the energy market and the global market hostage until the United States compromise.
Right. And as for China, it seems pretty unclear how far the Trump administration is really prepared to go in confronting Beijing, which is Iran's biggest trading partner. What do these new sanctions mean for China?
China is the key word here. China has been Iran's largest oil customer for several years, and especially its discounted oil. And that relationship gives Tehran a major economic lifeline. The U.S. therefore faces a dilemma: sanctions that avoid China's major banks that facilitate Iranian trade, or sanctions that aggressively target those banks could turn Iran campaign into a much broader U.S.-China confrontation, economic confrontation. We might go back to the economic war. China has already rejected the new sanctions as unilateral and has said it will take necessary measures to protect Chinese interests. So, no sanctioning major Chinese banks suggest that Trump wants China to reduce Iran's economic lifeline, but he also has to consider the relationship with China, the economic relationship with China, and possible Chinese retaliation, including the areas such as critical minerals. And so China will likely to oppose the sanctions publicly and negotiate with the United States privately to find the easier way to deal with the Iranian situation.
I see. And Pakistan's army chief was in Iran, and Pakistan's military said they made significant progress in talks to end this war. How much of a role can Pakistan actually play in mediating peace talks between the United States and Iran?
Pakistan can play a very meaningful intermediary role because, but they cannot impose a settlement to themselves. So, because Pakistan is unusually useful because it currently has access to both sides of negotiation. Washington asked Pakistan to encourage Iran to return to negotiations. Iranian officials also have confirmed receiving messages from the U.S. And the Pakistani officials said there is a significant progress, particularly regarding reopening the Strait of Hormuz and the escalation of the conflict. But so what's good about Pakistan is its trusted communication channel. When direct U.S.-Iranian diplomacy is politically very difficult, they don't trust each other, especially Iran doesn't trust the U.S. So the central problem is not communication here, it's mutual distrust between these two bargaining parties. So Washington and Tehran themselves must decide whether to continue this conflict or the cost of compromise.
Right, we'll have to wait and see. All right, Professor Gon, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Canada is striking back at the United States with retaliatory tariffs on about $20 billion worth of American goods. The move matches Washington's latest duties dollar for dollar as the trade fight between the two neighbors intensifies. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Canada is hitting back at the United States with a new round of retaliatory tariffs, escalating the trade fight between the two countries. Ottawa announced Tuesday that it will impose tariffs on about $20 billion worth of American goods, matching Washington's latest duties dollar for dollar. The Canadian counter tariffs take effect on September 8th and will cover around 700 products with rates of 15, 25, and 50%.
Today I'm announcing that Canada will match the United States tariffs dollar for dollar, rate for rate. Effective September 8, Canada will impose counter tariffs of up to 15, 25, or 50% on $27.6 billion in imports from the United States of America. For each product, our tariff would match the American tariff on the same type of Canadian good.
The move comes after U.S. President Donald Trump's new 50% tariffs on about $20 billion worth of Canadian imports took effect on Saturday, following the collapse of trade talks. Canada says it will place 50% tariffs on products including steel, aluminum, furniture, and clothing. Cheese, appliances, and some seafood will face 25% duties, while electronics and tools will be hit with 15% tariffs. The measures cover goods accounting for nearly 4.5% of Canada's total imports from the United States. Canadian Industry Minister Melanie Joly says the tariffs are designed mainly to protect Canadian businesses and workers, while also increasing political pressure on Washington ahead of the November 3rd U.S. midterm elections. The Canadian government is also rolling out additional support for companies and workers affected by the widening trade dispute. Meanwhile, President Trump added another layer to the tensions Tuesday, saying his administration is considering changing the name of Lake Ontario to Lake America. In a post on Truth Social on Tuesday, Trump said the United States is giving serious consideration to the change because it does not expect to do much business with Ontario in the future. The comment echoes Trump's previous move to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And here in South Korea, business sentiment rose to its highest level in nearly 4 years in August, helped by steady confidence in manufacturing and stronger conditions in the service sector. According to the Bank of Korea on Wednesday, the composite business sentiment index for all industries climbed 1.1 points from July to 99.6. That's the highest reading since September 2022, when the index stood at 102. The central bank says sentiment improved in non-manufacturing industries during the peak summer vacation season, particularly in transportation and leisure, as well as broadcasting and film. The CBSI is an economic indicator that measures confidence in a nation's business sector, with a reading below 100 indicating that pessimists outnumber optimists. The U.S. Pentagon has awarded Boeing an on-demand contract for F-15 fighter jets worth up to $131 billion. According to Reuters, the U.S. Department of Defense has said that the 10-year agreement covers production and includes foreign military sales to countries like South Korea. This suggests Seoul is guaranteed a direct channel to secure continuous performance upgrades. The South Korean Air Force currently operates 59 F-15K SLAM Eagles. The framework allows allied militaries to order maintenance and system integration whenever necessary. And President Trump's recent overture to North Korea has raised questions over how closely Washington is coordinating with Seoul. A senior U.S. security expert says alliance diplomacy must come first, including a Trump E-summit. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump should meet President Lee Jae-myung before sitting down again with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and send Secretary of State Marco Rubio to Seoul immediately. That's according to the Vice Chairman of the America First Policy Institute and former White House National Security Council Chief of Staff Fred Fleitz speaking with Arirang News.
Secretary Rubio needs to go to South Korea immediately and speak with the South Korean government to understand the situation and the success in our bilateral relations and how we can cooperate in dealing with North Korea.
In a recent article, Flight set out steps Washington should take before re-engaging Pyongyang. This follows Trump's surprise decision to cut the Uji Freedom Shield joint exercise from 11 days to 5 and reduce field training, raising concern in Seoul and Washington over alliance coordination.
The president's decision to partially roll back the joint exercises was a surprise. But it's worth noting that the U.S. has done this before on at least 3 occasions, the George H.W. Bush, the Clinton, and the Trump administration, while negotiations with North Korea were underway. The challenge with North Korea is much more difficult than during Trump's first term because of this Kim-Putin relationship. So, there's a lot to do here, and I think consultations with our allies is the most important first step.
Flight's article also proposes appointing a dedicated North Korea envoy and strengthening coordination with Japan and other regional partners. He also raised the need to clear obstacles to cooperation in nuclear-powered submarines, civilian uranium enrichment, and spent fuel reprocessing.
We also have to send our secretaries of commerce and energy to South Korea because we have some issues in trade and our energy negotiations. I think President Trump has to talk to the U.S. government to find out why aren't we doing more to get these relationships, getting these agreements through.
Addressing Trump's criticism of Seoul's non-participation in the Iran war, Flights contrasted South Korea's response with European allies that denied Washington access to bases.
South Korea under President Lee has an extraordinary record in cooperating with the United States on security and trade matters. And whatever concerns the president has with South Korea not getting involved in the war in Iran, and many of our allies didn't get involved, this extraordinary record, I think, covers South Korea quite well.
Amid concerns over alliance strains, Foreign Minister Cho Hyun and Secretary Rubio in a phone call on Monday agreed to coordinate closely on North Korea, tariffs, investments in security, and meet soon for further talks. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The late summer heat continues to grip much of South Korea, with sweltering conditions showing little sign of easing, although rain is forecast in the days ahead. Our Cho Young-eun reports.
Seoul's heat wave advisory was upgraded to a warning on Tuesday, with temperatures rising to around 33 degrees Celsius in the capital. As of 4 p.m. on Tuesday, heat wave warnings were in effect across most parts of the country, with daytime temperatures in southern regions climbing to around 35 degrees Celsius. Daily highs reached 32.7 degrees Celsius in Seoul, while Jeonju and Gwangju in the southwest climbed to 35.4 and 34.7 degrees respectively.
It felt like the weather had started to cool down recently, but it's gotten noticeably hotter again. The heat wave has been so intense that it's really difficult to even walk around outside.
I think it feels a little hotter today. August also seems to be hotter this year compared to previous years.
According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, the number of heat wave days across the country has already exceeded 20 this year, nearly twice the average for this time of the year. The number of tropical nights has also reached 16.4 days, marking the highest figure since 1994, when the country recorded 16.8 tropical nights. According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency on Tuesday, 74 people sought treatment for heat-related illnesses on Monday, with no death reported. That brings the total number of heat-related illness cases this summer to 3,732 as of Monday, including 33 deaths. At the same time, several typhoons are developing over waters south of the Korean peninsula. Typhoon Kenari has weakened over waters of southern China, while 3 typhoons remain active. However, they are unlikely to directly affect the Korean peninsula as the powerful high-pressure system responsible for the heat is acting as a barrier. The Korea Meteorological Administration forecasts that the heat will persist into early September due to a double heat dome phenomenon as the North Pacific High and the Tibetan High develop simultaneously.
The heat is showing no signs of easing even as we approach the end of summer. With sweltering conditions continuing across the country, the heat wave is expected to remain a concern for the days ahead. Cho Young-eun, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choo Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. CIA Director John Ratcliffe went to Moscow on Tuesday for meetings with Russian officials. The reports did not say who he was meeting or what the talks would cover, but his trip is the first known Moscow visit by an American spy chief since November 2021, when his predecessor met President Vladimir Putin about 3 months before Russia invaded Ukraine. The CIA declined to comment, but the U.S. reportedly asked Ukraine last week to hold off on strikes near Moscow for 3 days this week because a senior U.S. official would be flying in. In the South China Sea, new structures have appeared on a disputed islet. Analysts say China may be building an early warning radar station there. Satellite images taken on August 17th show the construction on Yagong Island in the Paracel Islands. The image provider said the work began in March and April and that several of the structures resemble military radar facilities seen elsewhere in the South China Sea. Yagong Island sits 14 kilometers from Antelope Reef, where analysts believe China is building a large military base. China has not acknowledged building a base there. In France, a tornado on Monday tore through the village of Poma in the southwest of the country, damaging hundreds of buildings. Dozens of homes were hurt, but none are in critical condition. Officials say about 300 of the village's 500 houses were damaged. Some were reduced to rubble, and 100 may no longer be safe to live in. Everyone has been evacuated while inspectors check the buildings. A weather forecaster said winds likely reached 200 kilometers an hour or more. In the United States, country music singer Dolly Parton has died at the age of 80. Her family announced her death on Tuesday. Her publicist said she died peacefully in Nashville. No cause of death was given, but days earlier, Parton said she was dealing with health issues but planned to keep working. Dolly Parton wrote classic songs like Jolene, Coat of Many Colors, and I Will Always Love You. She sold more than 100 million records and won 11 Grammy Awards.
It may be the end of August, but it certainly does not feel like it at all. The heat has been holding on, with most of the country still under heat advisories or warnings. Much of the southern provinces will have intense heat, with temperatures hovering around 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon. The weather pattern will be quite different depending on where you are today. The central regions, including Seoul and Gangwon-do province, will see 5 to 30 millimeters of rainfall, while some of southern provinces could see some passing showers during the day. And this afternoon, Seoul and Chuncheon will be getting up to 31 degrees, Gwangju at 35, and Daegu and Gyeongju will make it to 36 degrees under sunny skies. And there's some welcome news on the temperature front. After the rain this weekend, the heat should finally lose some of its grip.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.